welcome to the podcast. My name's Grace and this week I'm joined by Kieran and Paul Jones. Today we're going to be discussing Liverpool's 7-2 defeat to Aston Villa on Sunday. Boys, you're shaking your heads at me. What did you think? We'll start with you, Kieran.
Well, yeah, just pathetic really. I mean, from first minute to last minute, just I still haven't got my head around it personally. I mean, losing games of football, it's part and parcel of the game. I mean, you have the ups and the downs, but this was like not in certainly last 5 years I'd seen. I mean, there's going to obviously be a lot of finger pointing. It just all went wrong. I'd say obviously we've seen from what we've alluded to in previous podcasts, the high line that we do play is dangerous. And it's especially dangerous when we aren't pressing. To me, I didn't see nearly enough pressing from that team, for let alone 5 minutes, not even 90. And that's where we just kept conceding goal after goal after goal. I mean, for me, it's got to be obviously the manager. That's the way he tells them what to do. So for me, he has to take, some of the blame for it. But then the players out there didn't cover themselves in any glory whatsoever. And yeah, I'm just, I'm angry, disappointed, but yeah, I was genuinely speechless after the game. I just, just yeah, I think that sums it up.
Speechless, yeah. What about you, Paul?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that big sigh is exactly the same as Kieran's, isn't it? It was just, as you say, it started bad. It went from bad to worse. From minute one, we just didn't look at it. The first goal comes from a silly mistake from the goalkeeper, and that just set the tone for the rest of the night. I mean, it's funny because in football, anything can happen. I've seen so many crazy things happen in football, and the key to it is to make sure that it doesn't happen again. I think, if you look back, the last time we had a performance like that was probably, discounting the Tottenham away when they beat us 4-1, was potentially Stoke when they beat us 6-1 under Rodgers. So, it hasn't really happened before under Klopp. And for me, his job now is to make sure that it doesn't happen again. I mean, I was trying to think back after the game and try and look for some sort of positives, and I go through 1 to 11 and then the 2 or 3 subs as well that we made, the 3 subs, and there was nothing. There was absolutely no positive whatsoever. It's difficult because, as Kieran alluded to, that's the tactics that they've been given, but they were exposed to a massive degree in that 90 minutes, and it just looked like, sometimes you can have one player who has an off day, or, you might make a couple of mistakes and you get pulled out of it by your teammate next year. And, even Van Dijk didn't have a great game, and he's normally the most reliable centre-half that there's been in the Premier League probably for the last 2-3 years. So it was just one of them nights that, for me, you've got to put it to bed, you've got to learn from it. And as I say, just make sure it doesn't happen again.
Do you think Liverpool underestimated Villa? Do you think that's maybe why we were a bit complacent?
I mean, it's possible, but to be honest, last year's game there should have been a lesson to that. Should have been an indication to how tough it was going to be. We discussed in the preview that it took us till the 87th minute to equalise, and then we didn't go in front until the 93rd, 94th minute. So, if you wanted an indication as to how tough it was going to be, you'd only needed to look back at the most recent game at Villa Park. And, it is possible that they didn't do that. It may be that there was a few attitudes that they've turned up and thought, we've only got to roll out here, and we'll get the 3 points and off we pop off on our international jollies and stuff. So if they have, it's wrong, and it's a major smack down to earth with an almighty bump. But for me, that shouldn't have come into it, and your professionalism as a Liverpool player shouldn't allow that to come into it.
Yeah, definitely. We really missed Mane and Alisson on Sunday, I think it was really clear how much we missed them. Kieran, how much of an impact do you think that had on the game? Do you think if Manny would have started, maybe we would have scored a few more, or do you not think it mattered that much?
You never know, do you? I mean, certainly what I thought the problem was the pressing all over the pitch. So if Sadio does, come into the team, maybe, we press a lot higher up the pitch. Maybe he's one that, leads the press. But, with Alisson as well, I mean, obviously the first goal comes from a mistake from the goalkeeper. But having said that, Alisson's made a couple of errors himself, so would it have been different? Probably not. It's not the fact we lost the game. Like I say, we do lose games. It's the fact we shipped 7. It's 7, and not to a team that finished second or third last year. Villa survived relegation on the last day. They've added to the squad, but so the game might not have been 7, but I still potentially we could probably lost that game. For me the only couple of positives I found, if you can find any obviously with Mane not playing, Salah took his couple of goals very well under pressure. You had limited chances in the game. Well, we had a few actually in the first half, but when he got his chances, he scored them. And I thought we were a little, when we did get joy, certainly in that first half, was down that left-hand side between Robertson and Jota. So they're the little crumbs of comfort I've got from that game. But yeah, even with them side, may have been a different game. You never know. But just unacceptable.
You mentioned Robertson there. I thought Robertson was actually our best player on the pitch, and I think that says a lot, really, when you look at the score. Paul, you mentioned last week Joe Gomez, and you were saying how much you rated him as a player. He didn't have a very good game, did he?
No, he seemed to switch off, and he does have the odd tendency to switch off every now and again. But on Sunday night, it seemed that he switched off for the full 90 minutes, and I think Villa played on that. And what worries me is, and I'm not just talking about the Villa game now, if you look at the games that we've had sort of this season and the back end of since the lockdown and things, we're conceding a lot of very similar type goals. So a lot of the goals that we're conceding are down our right-hand side or the opposition's left. And they're using that space in behind Alexander-Arnold, but he's vacated obviously when he's going forward. And it's one ball into that space, and then it's onto Joe Gomez or whoever that right-sided central defender is. And we're allowing right-footed players to cut inside onto the right foot. Aubameyang done it in the Charity Shield. Leeds got a couple of, joy from it and scored from it at the Cop end. And then if you look at the Villa goals, other than, I know the first one was a mistake, but I think 5 out of the other 6 goals came from sort of in between where Gomez and Alexander-Arnold potentially should have been. Barkley was picking up the ball in the centre circle and just driving at us and running at us, and it was causing us issues. And then the other goal out of the other 6 that we just mentioned is the free kick. Now, myself and David, who obviously can't be with us tonight, unfortunately, probably for the best for his own sanity. But we've had conversations previously about these free kicks from wide angles over the last couple of years, and Villa worked on it. There was a man spare at the far post. They've hit him, and he's put it back across goal, and Ollie Watkins puts it into an empty net. And we were exposed. Every sort of little inkling of a deficiency was exposed majorly by Villa. You've got to give Villa credit for that. You have got to give them a bit of credit for it. But you've got to look at Liverpool and go, listen, these teams are going to do their own work, so we've got to improve and we've got to do our own job. There was one picture I seen in the paper where they'd added a couple of arrows to it, and Van Dijk and Gomez are on the halfway line, which is fine, and that's what I'd expect from me 2 centre-halves from where the ball was. But Alexander-Arnold was 10 to 15 yards in front of them, and still in sort of on the tip of the centre circle. And when I looked at it, I thought that's where they're giving Villa the space to exploit. And then obviously it went in there, and the likes of Jack Grealish, if you give them space, they're going to destroy you. You know, they want space to run into, and we played into their hands. So that is what worries me. Not necessarily the fact that you conceded 7 in one game, because, as I say, these things can happen. You just make sure it doesn't happen again. But it's the fact that we are conceding the similar goals week in, week out now, and it's becoming a problem.
Do you think that is Trent's downfall, the fact that he is really good going forward, but often his defending does let him down? Like, he leaves too big of a gap and then it's just straight through for them. Do you think that is his downfall?
I think it's a double-edged sword, because I think it also goes as part of the tactics as well. You know, if you want your fullback to stay back and defend, then you ask your fullback to stay back and defend. That's the way it is. But we don't. We want our fullback to go forward and become one of our most dangerous attackers, both sides. So, you know, it's a double-edged sword that you've got to manage that. You've got to manage how he goes forward, when he goes forward, and how he come, you know, and how you deal with that sort of quick break when he does go forward. For me, the simple option is you just drop a midfielder in there. So if your fullbacks are going forward, drop a midfielder in there and put him in to spread your centre halves wider, and put your centre midfielders to drop in between them, so you've got a back three. And we don't seem to be doing that. We seem to have, so it was Fabinho in the first instance on Sunday, who was still 10 to 15 yards in front of the 10 yards that Alexander-Arnold was in front of the centre halves, if that makes sense. And then you're asking your defensive unit then as an awful lot of work to do to get back behind the ball. And there was a few times where on Sunday night I'd commented that our first line of defence is normally Firmino, Salah and Mane or Jota, whoever it is that's playing. And on Sunday our first line of defence was Van Dijk and Gomez, and that you can't have that. You can't have that at any level, that your first line of defence is your back four. It can't be happening.
You mentioned that we should put a midfielder in front of Trent, maybe to try and bridge the gap a little bit. Kieran, where do you think Liverpool go from here? How do you think we improve? Obviously, that would be one option, but what do you think Klopp will do?
Yeah, well, I believe straight after the game, he, you know, sat them all down, wherever it was, and he made them watch a full rerun of the game, which I think is absolutely fair enough, because that can't happen again. But, you know, I think if we can just take it as a one-off, I'd like to think we won't concede 7 in the game again. It being so early in the season, I'd like to think that might be the kick up the backside the team need. You know, and I think players in there, you know, such as Henderson, Milner and Van Dijk will get the players together and go, listen, lads, that seriously can't happen again. You know, what happened there needs to stay there. You know, going forward, we need to address the issues. So hopefully the players, obviously we're going to an international break. I think it might be one of those cases where an international break's come at a good time for us. You know, I know obviously they'll be going off to play their games, but, you know, they'll be able to come back. Maybe I'd still have that fresh in the mind. And I know we got beat 7-2, but it's by no means a disaster. We're still 3 wins from 4 in the season. And obviously our next game in the derby, when we play Everton, we've got a chance to go top of the league again. So I'd like to think the players will learn from the mistakes that they've made, but put it to the back of the mind, and we go again.
Kieran mentioned the international break there. I'm just wondering, Paul, do you see that as a bit of a blessing in disguise?
There's 2 ways you can look at it, isn't there? On the back of a defeat, you want to get out there straight away and put it right. Or you can look at it the other way, as Kieran hasn't said, you know, you get a bit of a break from Melwood, you get fresh scenery, you know, fresh surroundings, different players. And you get to sort of reflect on it and try and maybe put it right mentally before you go and do it physically in a couple of weeks. So I think every player will be different on that. You know, you'll probably have some players who are chomping at the bit to get back out there and play. You know, you might even see some who use their international game to try and put it right. For me, I'm on the side of I would like to get out and play straight away. You know, if I've had a bad game, on the Sunday, I'd want to go out and play on Monday to put it right. But unfortunately, we can't do that. We've got 2 weeks to sort of stew over it. And then, you know, as Kieran just touched on, then it is Everton. So for me as well, if you look at it in terms of the bigger picture of results. If, and it's a big if, because if we perform like we did on Sunday, we won't. But if we do manage to get a win at Everton, then, no one's got a 100% record other than Villa, depending on how Villa get on. And, no disrespect, I know they played well on Sunday night, but I don't see Villa sort of challenging and still being up there round about Easter time. So, with Everton, they could do, that they absolutely could still be there. So for me, now it goes on to 2 weeks' time and it becomes an absolutely massive game.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think we'll be previewing the game against Everton in next week's podcast. I just want to touch on the transfer news that's happened this week. So firstly, Ryan Brewster joined Sheffield United. Kieran, what do you make of that move?
Yeah, I think I may have alluded to it. Obviously, I was, sad to see him go, but from the actual finding out the figure of, it was 23 million, I think it was. I think that's an excellent bit of business, personally. Obviously, I'm always on the side of players wanting minutes. So I think that the two clubs coming together and, reaching that agreement at 23 million. I mean, fair play to the lad. He's been with us a couple of years. Yeah, obviously went on loan to Swansea at the end of last year. So I've always liked him as a player. So all I can say is I wish him the absolute best of luck there at Sheffield United. I'm sure he'll score, I'd say about 10 league goals, what they'll be looking for. But very, very happy with the business that we've done there.
I think you have got to see it in terms of game minutes as well. Obviously, he probably wouldn't have played that many games for the first team, so I think that's definitely the right move, and I think he will benefit from being at Sheffield United. Xherdan Shaqiri and Harry Wilson are all staying at Liverpool. Paul, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, Shaqiri I'm quite happy about. I think he gets a little bit of unfair stick, to be honest. And every time he's played in a Liverpool shirt, he's put in a really good performance. I can't think off the top of my head a time where I've thought, Shaqiri's not done well there today or anything. You look back at big games and probably the biggest one of all that he was participated in was Barcelona at home, where he was absolutely outstanding. So, I'm quite happy that he's sticking around. I just hope he can get the minutes that he deserves. The window is still open for domestic moves for championship clubs and things. So it's whether Liverpool would look at loaning them out, because I don't think they'd pay, the reported figures of £20 million for either of them. So, and allegedly Liverpool don't want a loan move for them. So what do we do? Do we leave them sitting there till January, or do we let them go out and play some football and potentially, earn us a couple of pounds as well in saved wages and also loan fees? For me, obviously the latter would make more sense. Harry Wilson comes in as a domestic player, but I just can't see him. Obviously Jota's way above him in terms of the pecking order. You've then got the usual front three. So Harvey Elliott's probably up there above him. Shaqiri's up there above him. I just don't see where they're going to fit in. So for me, I would be looking as well more for the players' welfare to move them on to maybe a championship club, even if it's only a short-term loan until January, until we can then go and sell them on.
We've seen how that benefits players as well in terms of Ryan Brewster, like how much he benefited from being at Swansea. So yeah, I think that would definitely be a viable option. We didn't really touch on Jota, but I just want to mention him. So he obviously made his first full debut on Sunday. Kieran, what did you make of that?
Well, obviously with Mane, testing positive for COVID, he was going to be the natural replacement for him. I alluded to a little bit before. I thought, certainly in that first half, I thought he looked okay certainly down that left-hand side. Him and Robertson seemed to me have a little thing going there, so there were definitely positive signs from it. Working down, all the trouble we created was down that Villa right. Came inside, got a couple of balls into the box. But he certainly won't be happy with that result anyway. He'll obviously learn with the lads, the pressing mentality that we need, to absolutely, needed to stop any, stop, goals like that happening, in that game, because we can't have that happen every week. But he's still learning. Still learning the Liverpool way. Don't attach too much blame to him, and he's had, I think, a bright start to his Liverpool career.
What have you made of Jota so far, Paul?
I thought in the first half, like Kieran says especially, he was bright, he went forward, he created chances. I mean, you know, it just so happened that on Sunday, you know, it was one of them days where we were falling over the ball and everything. We don't normally do things like that, but, you know, Sunday we did. We were doing silly things. But going forward, I thought he was good. Defensively, well, you know, if I look back at the game, look back at the majority of Villa's chances, I don't think any come down our left-hand side. So, you know, him and Robertson worked together quite well. Was he as effective as Mane? Probably not, but who is? You know, Mane is one of the better players there is out there. So, yeah, I think he settled in well. You know, he had a little go in the League Cup as well, and against Lincoln to start with. You know, he got his goal against Arsenal in the league. So for me, he settled in well, and I think he'll be a big part of what we do going forward.
Yeah, completely. So obviously we've missed Mane this week because of COVID-19, and Shaqiri has also tested positive for coronavirus. So they're going to be out for 2 weeks. But in terms of Alisson suffered a shoulder injury in a training match. So he is rumoured to be out for 4 to 6 weeks. So this is our hot topic of the week. Do we think Adrian is the solution to our problems if Alisson is out for 4 weeks? Let's say, small chance, 4 weeks. We'll start with you, Paul. What do you think?
In a word, no. He came in last year, with all due respect, and I don't want to criticise him, nobody wanted him. And I don't mean at Liverpool, I mean he didn't have a club. The season had more or less began, and no one wanted him. No one in Spain wanted him. No one in England wanted him. He'd been released by West Ham. He came in and he done a fantastic job. Obviously, he didn't expect to come on against Norwich. Nobody expected him to come on against Norwich. I think he kept 10 clean sheets or something like that. For me, we possibly should have looked to replace him in the summer. We haven't, but having said that, that doesn't mean that we can't. There is a couple of goalkeepers out there in the Championship who you'd look at maybe on a short-term deal just to come in and maybe add something that a proven goalkeeper can do. A couple off the top of my head, and people may laugh at them, but for short term, the likes of Ben Foster, Jack Butland, somebody like that who you can go out, bring them in on a short term, they'd be happy to come to Liverpool. They'd know that they're only going to play 10 to 15 games over, maybe a 12, 18-month period. So for me, it seems a no-brainer to go and do that. As I say, I don't want to criticise him because he probably didn't expect to have one appearance for Liverpool, except for maybe a League Cup tie here and there last season. And, he was thrown in because of injury. He's being thrown in again. So would I like him to be our number one and be there permanently? Absolutely not. Am I happy with him doing short-term jobs? Well, at the moment, he's the best of the remaining bunch.
What do you make of all that, Kieran?
I would have to agree with most of what Paul said. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's Adrian or whoever, you're obviously not going to have someone as good as Alisson is. So obviously you're always going to have someone below that level. The last couple of guys, certainly, obviously the mistake against Villa, obviously we go back to last season, the mistake against Atletico that pretty much knocked us out the Champions League. A couple of high-profile errors there. But then, all the good work he did for us, like Paul said, coming in against Norwich, and I think until Alisson was back, we won every game, or won every game bar one. So he did look good. Obviously won us the Super Cup on penalties as well, and obviously penalties are a specialist thing. To me, I like, again, as Paul said, I would look in the Championship, specifically for me, Jack Butland. He'd be the one that I'd really want to have a look at, and there'd be no reason why you wouldn't say yes to Liverpool, Premier League champions. So I think he's, when he's come in, he's, done a job for us on occasion. But personally for me, I'd like to see someone else come in. Having said that, it's all obviously dependent on what Klopp wants to do, and I just think that he's just going to put his faith in Adrian. Yeah,
I fully agree with that. I think Adrian's obviously our best option, considering we've only got like 2 keepers. So, 3, but Adrian or Alisson. I agree with bringing someone in from the Championship, and I know Everton have just signed a keeper to try and challenge Jordan Pickford. So I'm not sure if that could work in our favour in terms of maybe it wouldn't necessarily give Alisson some competition, but it'd definitely give us someone to fall back on if Alisson got injured. I think Adrian's let himself down a few times now, and I'm not sure that we can be fully relying on him for that length of time. I'm just not too sure. Paul, you mentioned about bringing someone in from the Championship as well. Who would you go for?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple, isn't there? You know, I know we just mentioned, Kieran's just mentioned there that he likes Jack Butland, but maybe even if it was on a short term, and I know he's got ex-Man United connections and stuff, but maybe even somebody like Ben Foster, who, you know, he's played in the Premier League for 10, 15 years, whatever it may be. You know, he's going to be reliable. I don't know, you know, I'm guessing wages as well aren't going to be that much, you know, and as Kieran said, why would they want to stay in the Championship? Yes, they're going to play every week in the Championship, so I get that side of it. But for me, especially at the likes of Ben Foster's stage in my career, would I be looking and thinking, you know what, I've got the chance of maybe making the odd Champions League appearance, you know, FA Cup will be coming up, you know, potential of a little run in that, and probably depending on what squads we go with, you know, they may even have more of a chance of maybe a Wembley appearance at the end of that than they would playing for the likes of Stoke or Watford or that type of club. So for me, yeah, I agree. Jack Butland, I think I would look at that, but I don't know whether Stoke would want a good fee for Butland, considering that, you know, he is a bit younger and I'm guessing his contract's probably still got a few years left on it. So, you know, as a cheaper option and a maybe a reliable option, I would possibly look at somebody like Ben Foster.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's proved himself, hasn't he? He's shown what he can do over the years. I'm just wondering, we've just mentioned about signing a goalkeeper. Kieran, do you think Liverpool did enough in the transfer window?
We've had a couple of chats about this. Obviously, you know, with the way the season's progressed at the minute, I'm now when the window's now finally finished, I'm leaning towards the side of no. I mean, I've seen enough in those first few games to, you know, see a lot of pitfalls in the team. You know, certainly obviously the goalkeeper situation now. I'd certainly now love another centre-back, you know, especially with obviously Gomez not playing well, Matip not fit. I know they dropped Fabinho in there, but you'll certainly need cover if that's going to continue happening. So just from those two sides, I would, you know, now that the window's over, I would now say that we probably haven't done, you know, enough business. Obviously, we can bring players in domestically, so it's still not too late. But yeah, asking me now, I'd say the answer to definite no.
Yeah, for me, I think towards the start of the window, I was thinking, I think we've done. When we signed Thiago, I thought, right, okay, we've done enough. That's a big signing. He can prove himself at us. He can be the key to our midfield. But then now, looking back on it, I think other clubs have done a lot more business that's going to stand them in good stead. Everton, for example, I'm not saying they're going to be challenging for the league title because I don't think they are. I think they'll finish sixth. There's my bet for this season. But I just think from my perspective, I'm just wondering whether we should have maybe signed a goalkeeper or whether we should have signed another defender. I'm just not 100% sure just yet. Paul, what do you make of our business in the transfer window? Do you think we've done enough?
Well, I suppose I'd say time will tell on that, won't it? But in my opinion, as you're asking me now, is possibly not. I would have maybe liked another one to come in, as Kieran said, maybe a centre-half. I think if you look now, you know, I mean, I seen somebody the other day on social media was going on that Liverpool never get injuries, and I thought, wow, you know, if you look at the injuries we've had over the last sort of 2 years, they've been phenomenal. You know, Matip and Gomez between them have had probably the whole of that 2 years out. You know, one of them while the other one's playing type thing over that 2 years. You know, Alisson, who's our goalkeeper, I think this is his third injury over that time frame. So I don't know where they were getting that from. But if you look now, you know, with COVID as well, we've currently got Thiago, Mane and Shaqiri, who have all, you know, got COVID symptoms and are self-isolating. That then, for me, leaves our squad quite thin on the ground. And you know, we've seen that on Sunday night. Although they are still top players and things, it's what's behind that worries me. In terms of, you know, we are then looking at the likes of Harry Wilson to come in and step in, and that's fine for the League Cup tie, but is that going to be fine for Goodison Park in 2 weeks' time? No, it's not. So for me, you know, I would have maybe liked ideally a centre-half, but if not, maybe another attacking player who can play more on the right as well to complement. Because for me, if you look at it, then you'd have three as a backup. You've got obviously the usual Firmino, Salah and Mane. At the moment, we've got Jota and Minamino. And then, you know, for me, we're then struggling who can maybe play on the right, unless we look ideal world. Yeah, we could throw money at it left, right and centre, but I think a lot of our transfer dealings this summer did depend on who went out, and as we've just mentioned, Grujic didn't go out, Shaqiri didn't go out, Harry Wilson didn't go out, so the money wasn't there to be able to bring other people in as well.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. So that's all we've got time for on this week's pod. Stay tuned because next week we'll be previewing our game against Everton. Thank you, Kieran. Thanks, Paul.
Just before we go, have you had your chocolate bar yet?
No. Let's not forget the chocolate bar. No, I haven't. I still haven't had my chocolate bar. I don't know where it is. They're not sending me one, are they? They're just not sending me one.
If anyone's watching from Liverpool, send her a chocolate bar, will you?
Yeah, send me one. You know, I don't ask for much. All I want is one chocolate bar. That's all I'm asking for. It's really not difficult. I'm sure everyone was dying to know what happened with my chocolate bar anyway, but clearly it's lost in the post, so you just have that. You eating yours then? Was it nice?
No, it's still in the fridge.
Oh, yeah, I've still got mine.
Oh,
we'll bring it along next week.
Oh yeah, you know, you just make it last, you know, while it's there, mate. Thank you, everyone. We'll speak to you sometime next week.